Today, I would like to talk about the topic of relationship between faith and the commitment to climate action and a very practical example. My guest for this interview is Beth Lew. She's a member of, she's an active member of the Climate Change Advisory Group, which was set up by the Religious Diversity Center in 2021. Beth is a retired adult educator, and she's originally from the United States and has always been a passionate gardener. A few years ago, Beth got together with 12 other like-minded people in Palmerston North, and they formed a group called Growing Gardens and Communities. Beth, I understand that you are doing amazing work in the communities around Palmerston North, helping people to use their gardens well and growing their own food, or kai, as we also say in New Zealand. Can you tell us how this initiative started?
Okay, thank you for having me, Beate. We started in by watching a video together that one of my friends had found at the library, and it was called Tomorrow, a vision for a sustainable future. And at the end of watching this amazing video that gave us lots of ideas of ways that we could help the world, the video asked us to consider what we would like to do together to make a change in our community. And so that sparked a lot of lively discussion. And in the end, people said they wanted to focus on food sustainability. They wanted to do something that could help teach people to be more effective gardeners. One of the women that attended the group said, I've been gardening for years and years, and I still, don't really know very much, and I'm not doing very well. And she said, but I don't want to pay a lot of money to go and learn things I don't really need to know. So we decided together that we would have a teaching garden. We would try to find ways that we could help motivate people to have gardens and to do it better, to raise their own kai, and just contribute to this idea of food sustainability. So that's how we started. Then we began to reach out to the wider community to find out if we could find other people who knew things about gardening that would want to share, and try to figure out how we could do this.
So how big were your gardens, or your friends, and who started? Did you have a big garden or a small garden? What kind of gardens?
Some of them didn't have a garden at all, and many of them just had just a small raised bed in their garden. And I probably was the one that was the most focused at the time on gardening. I'd had a lot of health issues, and I was finding I really wanted to grow vegetables that were spray-free and were organic. And so I'd been putting a lot of time and effort over the previous 3 years of trying to have a really healthy, nutritious garden. Mm-hmm. So I might have been that had the largest garden at the time. So we met somebody. I asked him to come and speak with our group. He was the manager of a local community garden here in Palmerston North. His name is Dave, and Dave came and enjoyed the evening and the potluck dinner with all these 12 ladies, and joked his way the whole time, and then offered us 4 garden beds that we could use for our teaching garden. And we thought we'd have workshops right there at the garden.
Yes. So that's how you started with Dave, and did he give you some new ideas?
Not really, but he gave us the gardens and introduced us to the other members of the community garden, who are mostly from the Nepalese, Bhutanese communities that had immigrated as refugees to New Zealand. And so they have lots of their own vegetables that they grow, their own traditions about things. And so it's been a lovely thing to learn from them as well.
So it's very, very multicultural. What is the age group of the participants there?
Oh, they're mostly in family. So and everybody turns out when they go to visit their garden plots. So from the elderly down to children, most of the younger members are the ones that are doing most of the hard work. But the elders are there to make sure that they do everything properly and give them good advice. It's
And
lovely.
and I guess sometimes it might be difficult when you come from Bhutan or from Nepal and you have very different climates. And so they would share maybe their experience from home or try to grow the same kind of vegetables here as there. And
Yeah.
have you heard a lot of stories from them telling you how it was at home?
But if I haven't been able to do that. Many of the people that are out there gardening don't have that much English yet. Um, but they do tell me the names of the plants that they're growing. And we've been there now. This is our second, 2.5 years that I've been there. So we're watching how people do things very well. And yeah, just like it's lovely. They'll follow in the springtime they plant potatoes. And then after the potatoes, it's green beans, dwarf green beans. And then after that, it's squashes and pumpkins. And then right now there's a lot of it's what I would call it's a Chinese radish is one of the things. And then they have lots and lots of coriander. They'll follow that with a whole bed of coriander. So it's really lovely to watch. It's all organic, and the things follow each other so that it's like they're putting the green beans in will add nutrition to the soil,
Yes.
and then the pumpkins will go in right after that. Anyway, it's
So you don't take the same nutrition out of the soil also, because every vegetable, everything that you grow needs different nutrition.
That's right. And so the green beans will be putting in nitrogen,
Yeah.
and that the pumpkins need. They're heavy feeders, and they'll need that.
Tell me, how did you approach the community? So you've helped others to start gardens also.
Yes. So between us, we began to talk word of mouth with different people. We advertised through Environment Network Manawatu. We became a member of that group, and we were able to talk about what growing gardens and communities means. That was really important to us. Many of the members who first formed our group were from the interfaith group here in Palmerston North, and we were very strongly committed to assisting to mitigate climate change. Was a really important thing for all of us, but also to help to build the community, help to make our communities safer places by knowing each other, by trusting each other, and just by making friends right across the community. So it didn't matter what religion or background or ethnicity or any of those things. Our goal was to help with food sustainability, help with mitigating climate change, help with making the communities a more loving, caring, safe place to be. And so we began word of mouth, talking to people in our own faith groups and talking to our neighbors and our friends, and sharing that we were starting this teaching garden. And we got the garden beds. We went into the first lockdown, and then as we came out of the first lockdown, the pandemic, then we held our first workshop at the gardens to plant out the beds. And so the workshop was about winter gardening. And we had about 12 people come, and some people that even just wandered by, and a couple of the Bhutanese families. There were different people that came from that group as well. Then, after becoming members of Environment Network Manawatu, I became very good friends with with Helen Lindorf, who was then working as the Manawatu Food Action person.
Mhm.
So this is a position within the Environment Network Manawatu, which was looking at how they could help this whole idea of food sustainability in Palmerston North and the environs around. And one of their first actions was to bring together all the people that were working in this area, food sustainability. And they all began to really talk together. And as a result, they all the food banks and Just Zilch, which is a food rescue program, were able to to network together, and they assist each other in finding and distributing food, which is just really cool. Just to know that all the different religious organizations that are trying to provide the food bank thing.
They got together and work together for the food, which is what sustains us all.
That's right. That's right. So Just Zilch is able to bring in lots and lots of food from other areas around New Zealand, and then distributes it to the various other food banks as well. So there's a steady stream of food that can go out. And then we also have in Palmerston North a group called the Community Fruit Harvest Group, which is has one paid worker to organize it, and then they get volunteers, and they harvest fruit from trees that individuals might say, I've got a lemon tree, I can't use all of this, and so they'll bring in somebody and pick from the tree and then distribute it out as well. So anyway, that's
So what do you do with people who don't have a garden at all, so they can be part of that project where they pick fruits from other people's gardens with their permission? Is that
well,
right?
if there's someone like that, then they can go and assist with the community fruit harvest, that type of thing. But what often happens is community fruit harvest will take the bounty of all of this fruit that they're either pick or they're given, and then they share it out at the local libraries, or we have several places where they have what we call te patakakai, which means the food cupboard.
Yes.
And it's just set, these different patakakai are sometimes set up just on the side of the footpath in different places, different neighborhoods, and people can come and help themselves to different kinds of food.
And that worked very well during the lockdown too? Well, you're working in lockdown time whole time.
Yeah. Well, it worked pretty well. And there's a couple of other places where it's a little more controlled. And maybe it's only open a couple of days a week or things like that. But a lot of people are using those
The free fruit and free vegetable.
Free foods and free vegetables. Yeah. So we began in our gardens that we all the food that we were raising, we were also donating to these free food places. And sometimes I even drive it around to different people that I knew needed some.
What do the businesses say? The businesses, like the little shops, or do they complain?
No, I don't think anybody's complaining. This is usually, we do have a little bit of problem sometimes with these free food outlets and things like that. There are some people that sort of abuse it and will come and help themselves. They don't need it, and they might even try to sell it. But they're not supposed to. Yep. But most of the people I'm talking to are managing to get some free food that way. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also a question of honesty, and that's part of the social justice theme, which is part of climate change, isn't it?
Yeah. And often, like even at the community gardens, there's people that will come and help themselves to the kai that's growing in the garden. And I often say to myself, oh, well, that kamakamo's not here this week, and someone's helped themselves, and I hope they must have needed it more than me. and I was going to give it away anyway. So I'm very happy that somebody has taken it. Yeah.
Tell me, how are you bringing these experiences into the climate change advisory group? And tell me more about this work.
Um, well, the idea I think of the way that we can help to mitigate climate change, right? There are a lot of different streams of how this can happen. There's so many different things. So this particular project is about helping people to grow vegetables organically. And so when we're not using chemical fertilizers, and we're growing our own spray-free type food, then just that in itself is one step towards lessening the impact of too much carbon in the system. The other thing that we really try to do is to talk to people about composting and how the act of taking care of your own garden waste, your own lawn clippings, and your own kitchen waste, separating it out and getting it out of the waste stream, are really important ways that you can reduce the carbon in the atmosphere. When we put our kitchen waste in the rubbish and it goes to the tip, it rots in the tip, and it creates more of this carbon that's going into the atmosphere. If we put it in a compost pile in our backyard, or if we bury it, or if we have a big compost bin and we put it in there, it'll rot down in a natural fashion, turning into soil that we can use again in our garden, and in the way that nature has intended it. So this is a really important way. A lot of the carbon that ends up in the atmosphere is coming from the systems that we have to get rid of waste.
I was also just thinking of when you have tomatoes, for example, and you have little tomatoes, in order not to get them squashed and pack them properly, they're usually packed in cardboard or in plastic for the supermarkets, but they have no other choice. Otherwise, you can't transport them so easily. But if you grow your tomatoes in the garden, you only have to watch the birds.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much that has to do with food. The food systems we have contribute mightily to climate change. So it's really important for us to have a look at all those different systems that are in place that are causing our planet to have trouble. Yeah.
It seems like you're growing seeds for others to grow their food.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So how important is for you your faith in that context with growing food and being involved in this climate change advisory group?
Oh, to me, it's really important. I care deeply about the environment and the degradation that we see around us. In my faith, it's really important that we see ourselves as organic with nature, and that we are the kaitiaki of our neighborhoods and our communities and the whole planet. And so then I think to myself, well, what is something I can do that is practical, that is something that I have control over? What are those sorts of things that I can actually do to make a difference? And so I think carefully about these things, and I read as much as I can, and I look at all the different advice about things that an individual or what can I do in my own home, in my own kitchen, and then I think about the people in my community, and I think about my faith community. What can my faith community do that will contribute to this? If we're having a big dinner, should we even consider using materials that we're just going to throw away? Should we, can we get rid of using plastic plates or plastic cups if we're having some sort of an event? And so at one point, our community bought about 50 porcelain cups and plates and our own dedicated cutlery box of forks and knives and spoons and things like that. And we take them around in boxes. We don't have our own for church facility. So we meet in each other's homes or in community centers and things like that. And we'll take our boxes of these things and we'll bring them home and clean them and store them. We're a small community, so it's easy for us to do that. But I know other Baha'i communities up in Auckland that have their own dedicated community centers will, have all these things in storage as well, so that we're avoiding using the whole.
But even if you have small gatherings, I've been to gatherings where we actually brought a cup and we brought our own plate. So not just bring something on top of the plate, but also the plate, which is good because you take it home again and you take care of it. And in one event, I found it amazing how everyone was telling a story of why they chose this particular cup, why this cup was so special to them. So you can even make a special event of it.
Oh, that's a lovely idea.
And you can, and what you are doing is you bring food and you can tell a story. You can say how you put the netting around your tomatoes or your grapes in order to make sure that the birds didn't eat it all, or how did you prevent the snails from getting your salad. So I think that if you have your own food, you can still tell stories about it.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Which is also communities. So are you, what is your outlook for the community gardens? Are you hoping to get all Palmerston North involved or the wider New Zealand?
Well, I would love to know that more people are empowered to have a garden that want to. There's so many things that you can do. And most people are really afraid of having a garden because they know it might take up a little bit more time than they want. Once you get your garden established, sometimes it really doesn't take more than a couple hours a week. But I understand that fear and that anxiety, and that's one of the reasons why we try to assist this. One of the things that I began to do with Helen Lendor from Manawatu Food Action is we began to run a garden conversation hour at the local library in the area that we are both really focused on. It's an area of Palmerston North where there is a lot of food instability. A lot of people struggle to be able to purchase food. So we began to run these workshops once a week at the local library. And of course, it was in the middle of the day, so it's mostly pensioners or people on the benefit that were able to attend. And we had really quite lively discussions about plants and about how to cook them and what else can you do with these things. And we gave away seedlings. We assisted people if they wanted help with their garden. And we were able to find people that really wanted to have a garden in their own backyard. And so that's what became the focus for me for all of 2021. Our group got a small grant so that we were able to provide a raised garden bed, teach people how to put in a no-dig bed, and provide free compost. And we were able to put in 11 garden beds over that period of time. And then we applied and have another grant for this year, and we've already put in 3 gardens. And I've got about 3 more people waiting for them. So that's come sort of word of mouth.
Mhm.
It's focused on a particular neighborhood where people are struggling to have enough kai to eat for their own families. One of the best stories, I think, was from about one woman who's raising her grandchildren and very frustrated with how her money wasn't allowing her to grow good, to give good vegetables to her grandsons. And she was really keen to have a garden. So I went and we looked at her yard and decided where the garden would be. And we set up 3 beds and brought in the compost, and she planted it out, and it was so wonderful. She began to reorganize her whole backyard, and now instead of 3 beds, she has probably the equivalent of about 10 beds.
Wow.
Which she's put in, and she's been able to you know, I asked her, how is it going for, you know, have you achieved your goals of being able to give your grandchildren better food? She said, absolutely. And they're out there helping, they know where their food comes from. And she's been able to just supply good, healthy food for all of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this example and for all your work and your community involvement. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best, good gardening, and let's hope that it'll continue and that it grows. I know that there are similar projects in other parts of the country, but what you're doing is amazing. Thank you very much, Beth.
Thank you.